Hey friends, John here, and welcome to The Martial Actor. Today we're going to see Mulan reviewed by a black belt. As I'm sure you are aware, Mulan dropped on Disney Plus a few days ago, and already there are a ton of reviews popping up. But I haven't seen any reviews focus on the combat or the fighting aspects of the movie, so today I'm going to review a few of the clips from the film, and I'm going to show you what a black belt thinks. Before we get into it, I do want to say I was super hyped to see this film for a couple of reasons. One, Mulan was one of my favorite Disney films as a kid, and two, Ben Cook is the stunt coordinator. He also did the stunts for Thor Ragnarok, and I'm a big fan, and I've been wanting to see the film since the trailer first dropped last December, so let's get into it. Okay, so this is the first clip that we're going to react to. This is the Rouran army coming to invade the first Chinese garrison. I mean, it really sets up the feeling and the atmosphere for the rest of the movie. We're about 8 minutes in. So the first thing I want to talk about is this guy. His name is Yoson An, and he's playing Bori Khan, which is like the leader of the Rouran army. So he is actually a very famous actor who has a very extensive history in fighting films. He played Bruce Lee in the Bruce Lee biopic Dragon, and he did a fantastic job. So when I found out that he was playing this guy, I was super psyched because, again, he's super talented. Okay, and they're riding up to the gate. And so the first tricky shot we get right there is him catching the arrow. So there's a couple ways they could have done that. Probably the way they did that is he had the arrow already in his hand, and then he acted like he was catching it, and then they got a couple other shots to put before it in order to frame and cut around it in a way that made it look like he was catching it. Then he shoots the arrow back. This character is actually the witch. So she has like taken that guy's form. And then she throws some shurikens at these guards. And right here, that guard, he fell forward, even though the other ones fell back, which is the natural reaction that someone would have when getting stabbed with a shuriken. You would fall back, not like forward into it, but it's whatever. And then they're riding. So this is actually a pretty cool stunt, right? So they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. They have 13 people standing on horses as they're riding toward camera, which you don't really see a lot of horse work now, especially when it comes to stunts. Back in like the 30s to 60s, in the golden age of Western cinema, it was like a requirement for not even just stuntmen, but like leading male actors to be able to ride horses and work with them in a way to keep you safe and that looked good on camera. But that really fell out after Westerns. Again, you don't really see a lot of horse work anymore. So it's really cool that they had, 12 stuntmen plus Yoson An riding like atop of these horses as they're standing, coming towards camera. I wasn't expecting it, and I thought it looks cool. So that was a pretty cool shot, right? They used wires in order to jump from the horses onto the wall, and then they continue running up the wall as the camera kind of does a turn with them. Now, there are a lot of elements that have to go into making that shot work. It's a combination of green screen and camera work and wires and stunt work and just so many things. So when I saw it in the trailer, I was really impressed. Now, I also think that it is a really cool homage to just Chinese martial arts films in general. These kinds of shots, these kinds of motions remind me a lot of Hero. They remind me a lot of Crouching Tiger. A lot of these like classic Eastern martial arts films where you're really playing with a heightened sense of reality, really playing with bending the rules and what you can do and what you can get away with. And it's really cool. I like it a lot. Okay, and they run and jump over the wall, and again, you get these like really interesting camera movements that really accentuate the combat. I like it. So you get a cool roundhouse kick, another roundhouse kick, more kicks, dragging people away, and he kind of gets this slow walk. You will do. And then the witch comes back in. And that's basically the end of this clip. Okay, so the second clip is the training montage. Now, you've got like many bodies that we're working with here. So it's always hard to choreograph and work with a lot of bodies on film. So we'll see how it works. Now, let me just say, Donnie Yen is a legend. He has been in so many things. He is such a good fighter, and he's a really good actor, and it just blew my mind that he was in this film. Now, in order for Niki Caro to capture this movement that we're about to see, she had to shoot in a very high frame rate because Donnie Yen was moving so fast that the camera couldn't catch it. Just look and you'll see what I mean. So he's doing like a sword kata, right? But he's moving so freaking fast. So like you see these movements twisting the sword, you can barely even see like the glint of the sun off the sword. So I've talked about this before, but camera can't pick up fast movement. The human eye is much better at it than a camera lens. And so this sequence, along with a lot of the other sequences in the film, were shot on a really high FPS. It gives it almost like a mechanical look. It gives it a really rigid look, but it gives you a lot of freedom as a filmmaker, because if you're shooting in a high FPS, then you can slow things down in order to get the speed or get the image that you want. And if you don't want to slow it down, you can speed it back up to the original FPS, and you can do anything in between as well. So a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people do. It just really depends on your own aesthetic and your own style. But for Donnie Yen's sequence, they had to do it in a high FPS because otherwise the camera couldn't catch the action. Now this is cool to see. Again, it's like a really big group kata, and the movement that they're doing isn't that hard, but it is very reminiscent of Chinese martial arts. There are martial arts schools in China that you can go to where like literally dozens and dozens of kids will be dressed in the same uniform and be doing the same kata. And it's really cool to watch. It's almost like watching a dance, like a synchronized dance. There's something very pleasing about watching large groups of people do the same motion all at once. And so I thought it was really cool to see. Now this training sequence is pretty long, so we're gonna skip forward to another fighting chunk. Okay, so now we're getting unarmed kata, and again, this is the same kind of thing. Lots of bodies moving in motion all at once. I really like seeing it. And even though, again, the motion isn't that hard to do, it's hard to get that many bodies moving synchronized at all, and so it's cool to capture it on camera. So the training montage kind of ends, and we get a cool fight with Mulan and Honghui. Now, for this movie, they divided the character of Shen into two different characters. So Donnie Yen's character is the commander, but then we also get a different love interest named Honghui. So we get a cool fight between Mulan and him. And they're all training with spears right now. Spears are like a very common weapon in Chinese Eastern martial arts. So that was a cool little sequence. Yeah. And so these are all like very stereotypical spear type movements. That was definitely not all Liu Yifei. That was definitely some of her stunt double, but she does do a lot of her own stunts, so I didn't mind seeing that. Yeah. So we get a lot of spinning. That was a cool kick. Again, side kick, like a flying side kick. That was a stunt double as well. And then we get a cool little like pose there. That was a good sequence. And she kind of slides under. Okay. So that clip right there, that shot, that would have been enhanced with a wire, right? So she did the movement, kicked her leg up. That spear was definitely connected to a wire, and then someone pulled it up in order to accentuate that kick. Was cool to see. And she does the kick. And that's it. So that kick was also definitely on a wire. There's, again, a lot of wire work here, and it does remind me a lot of these other traditional Eastern martial arts films. It's fun to see. Now, I do think that this clip and the movie in general, they tend to have a lot of editing. I think I would even go as far as saying it's over-edited, because there's just a lot of sequences where you start a movement and then it cuts before the movement gets to finish. And I can understand how you want to accentuate the movement and use your editing to kind of play with the reality and play with creating this world. But there's so much editing that sometimes it's hard to follow the action and it's hard to read what's going on. And you're not really highlighting your actors as well as you could, especially with Donnie Yen, with Jason Scott Lee, with Jet Li, even with Liu Yifei. Like, they all have martial arts training. And so I think it could have been highlighted a little bit better, a little bit cleaner, in a way to really showcase their abilities. What do you guys think? Okay, so this next clip is Mulan versus the Witch.
Soldier in the Emperor's Imperial Army.
And so we get a cool little slash. That is a cool, like, lock that she's got her in right there. And then the witch kind of does a thing and uses some magic, and then Mulan goes flying back.
It poisons your chi.
So, okay, so right there, it's a funny little thing. So Mulan comes in for an overhead strike, but then you can see right there the witch grabbed it like this, and it was coming this way. So those movements do not match. So I'm assuming what happened was there was some extra choreography in that battle, and then it was cut for time. I mean, the movie is almost 2 hours long, so it makes sense that they would cut some stuff. I'm assuming that's what happened. Who knows? So then the witch's hand gets cut. Mulan does another flourish, and then comes in for a strike. The witch throws a shuriken, and the sword goes flying. And then Mulan trips and is kind of like crawling away. So they are building tension here. You know, the blood is dripping from the hand, which is good narrative work. She grabs the sword.
I ask again. Who are you?
I'm Hua Jun, soldier in the Emperor's Imperial Army.
Then you will die, pretending to be something you're not.
When she throws the shuriken, flies back, we get a cool flip from the stunt double. Then she flies into the rocks. So, a few things there. One, there is a little bit of a Chekhov's gun as she's like walking on the volcanic ice or whatever it is. It starts cracking, but then it never breaks. So we don't really see the consequence of that. So that is a little bit of a red herring. They could have gone without that. Skipping ahead, this is literally just minutes later. Mulan is now riding into battle as herself. And she gets a spear thrown at her, and then she does her signature kick thing, does a flip on the horse, and then does a jump kick onto the spear and kills the guy. Get a cool flip there. Another jump kick. And so we are getting these like this cool sequence. Even that kick was really cool. But again, there's just like, there are so many cuts happening. You know, each of these clips is maybe a second. Some of them are less than half a second. And so it's really difficult to kind of tie the combat in together. They are playing with rhythm here, which is kind of cool. It gives you more of like a sense of what Mulan herself as a character is feeling. As an audience member, I think I would have liked to see a little bit longer sequences of action juxtaposed with quick edits as opposed to quick edits throughout. Okay, so this last sequence we're gonna look at is the ending sequence. Mulan's coming in to save the Emperor from Borikhan and the rest of the Rouran army. And honestly, this fight sequence in the hallway was probably my favorite fight sequence in the film. So we start off and we get a bunch of people running on the wall. Now, this is really fun to see. I really enjoy seeing stunts like this. Now, these guys are definitely on wires because they're taking in between 6 and 8 steps on the wall, which is just not feasible. However, I have seen like legitimate parkour practitioners get up to 4 steps on a wall with no wire or no assistance, which is really cool. I think that whenever I see unassisted wire wall runs in films, I'm always impressed. Now, again, these guys are on wires. It's still fun to see, and I think it looks really good. Mulan also gets her little run on the wall. She also slides on the wall, which is cool. Slices the guy, and then jumps down. Jumps off the guy, and then we get this guy right here. So we get a cool little motion with that weapon. And then he kind of... Okay, so there was a lot going on right there. First of all, that weapon, it's a variant of what's called a whip chain. So a whip chain is a traditional Eastern martial arts weapon, and it's a very advanced weapon to use. Normally, a whip chain is about 5 feet in length. They have metal links, and they're connected by chain link. And you use it by swinging it around your body, tightening it in ways so you can whip it out like an extension of your arm or your leg. Now, in order to even start studying whip chain, most of the time you have to first become proficient with nunchuck and then also bow staff. And once you have a fundamental knowledge of both of those weapons, you can start studying whip chain. So again, it's a very advanced weapon to use. It's very difficult to use. So whenever I see it used in films, I'm always very impressed with whoever is wielding it. Now this is a variant of the whip chain. It's got a ball, like a spiked ball on the end of it. So it doesn't function exactly the same, but you would use it in a very similar way. All of the sequences that we saw with that weapon looked good. They were very fun to see, and I thought it really heightened the fighting because most of the fighting that we've seen has either been hand-to-hand or like some type of longsword or spear. So it's fun to see a different variant of a weapon. Now, when Honghui grabbed it by the chain in order to stop the ball from swinging, that's totally impractical. That would never work in real life. But I didn't mind it because we're like dealing with heightened elements throughout this whole film. It took me out of it a little bit, but I'm assuming that anyone who didn't know how those weapons function in real life wouldn't know that you couldn't just grab it. So, and then Honghui kind of punches the guy and then kind of like secures him so that he can't follow Mulan. And we'll jump forward. And this is the part where Mulan faces off against Bori Khan.
Who has come to save the dynasty.
So she gets a flourish and then stabs, kind of gets a cool jump, and then kind of falls down. Camera follows her. We get some more jumping action here. Cool framing. And then we get this. Now, this motion is what's called a core. You see it a lot in classical fencing and sword fighting. It's when the two swords clash and then the two people come together and kind of use their weight or strength to push against the swords. You see this a lot in filmmaking because it's used as a breather between fights, and it's also used to escalate the tension and escalate the emotional response to whatever is happening. It's a common mechanic, but it's common because it works well. It really does a good job of grounding a fight in a more emotional space, in a more character-driven space. And I like how they did it here as well. And you see she kind of reinforces her sword with her hand, and then pushes, and her sword flies, and falls into the magma pit. And all is lost for Mulan because she is disarmed and weaponless against Bori Khan. Now, I do like these emotional moments that the film does. I think it does them well, right? Really framing it in Mulan's perspective and framing it in a way that really shows you what she's going through as she's fighting. It does a good job of doing that. And I did also really like this shot, framing the Phoenix behind Mulan, as she kind of starts getting the upper hand against Boricon. So we see more flips. She's flipping, grabs the bamboo, jumps over him, and then does a thrust to his face. And then she jumps onto the wooden platform that's like spinning, right? So one of the issues that I did have with this fight scene was that Mulan only has 2 offensive strikes in the whole fight. We saw that first one, with the bamboo. The second one's coming up. So they're kind of balancing on the beam. Again, we're getting a breather in this fight. Boricon moves up to break the balance. And then Mulan does her second strike right here, which is a stepping stool side kick. So I like the stepping stool, and it's a really dynamic kick. It's really cool to see. Again, it's just like the editing isn't making a ton of sense in my mind. If you go back and count, the stepping stool was cut into 5 different shots. I don't think you need that many in order to illustrate what's going on. When you have one strike that is cut across 5 different frames and that is evident throughout the entire movie, it really makes it difficult to follow the action, and it doesn't highlight your actors and their physical skill as well as longer shots could. And that's basically the end of the fight. So, what did I think? As a black belt, I think I can provide a lens that most people don't necessarily see. And there are plenty of other reviews out there, especially on YouTube, that, dive into the character development and the thematic elements and even juxtaposing like the old movie with this one. And so I don't really want to focus on those things. I'm really just talking about the combat, the choreo, and the stunts and how well I think they were executed in the film. Now, I think Mulan did an okay job, and really it comes down to how it was delivered. You've got great actors in this film and great actors that know how to move, right? Liu Yifei has martial arts experience. Donnie Yen is a legend. Jet Li, also a legend. Jason Scott Lee, amazing. So you've got these actors that know how to move and can do choreo very well. You've also got Ben Cook. He's a great stunt coordinator. You've got some really great fight sequences, some really awesome stunts, and a lot of those were really evident in the final product. However, again, I think it comes down to the editing. There were so many shots that were cut and juxtaposed next to other shots that it became hard to follow the action, even as a black belt. It was hard for me to really see what was going on because there were so many clips that just were right next to each other. We didn't really get a lot of longer sequences, and longer sequences are how you show off your choreo and show off your actors. I think when all is said and done, it really comes down to Niki Caro's version of the movie. She shot almost everything in a high frame rate when it comes to the action sequences, which really would give her a lot of flexibility when it comes to these cuts to use. However, she hasn't shot action before, as far as I know, and so I think that it was probably a safe thing for her to do. I think she probably wanted to have the options for how to cut and how to edit after all of the shooting is done, and she probably did not have a strong vision of how the action should end up looking before or while you were shooting. I can see why Disney chose her, and I think that has to do a lot more with the character elements and the thematic elements, but as far as the action elements, I think it could have come together in a little bit cleaner way, a little bit smoother way in order to really highlight and showcase the skill and talent that existed on set, because obviously there was a lot of it. It's still a good movie. It's still worth watching, so check it out and let me know what you think. And that's it for today, so take care of yourself, take care of each other, and I'll see you next time. Internet is down.